Hi everyone, I'm Josh.
And I'm Jim, and this is the Dapper Meeple.
This show is about our love of gaming, the games we play, and the gaming community around this passion.
So grab some snacks, pull up a chair, and join us at the table with your monocle and bowler hat. Hey kids, remember, this is an adult podcast and may contain adult language.
Also, the Dapper Meeple outfit, not required.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dapper Meeple. So we decided that October was going to be all pirates all the time. So we're back to shivering your timbers.
Today we have Joseph Frederick from Ludamus Games to talk to us about his game, We're Sinking.
We're also going to talk about pizza-themed games, little libraries, and maybe teach Joseph enough about D&D for him to pick a favorite class in our Know Your Character segment.
All that and more on this episode of the Dapper Meeple.
Arrr. So if you guys listened to the last episode, I just want to be the first to let you know that we did, in fact, not sink.
Yeah, actually, the few times we played We're Sinking, we haven't sunk yet.
Right.
Maybe it's just because we keep playing with good people and nobody wants to sabotage the boat.
That could be it, or I feel like it might have crept into my life, and I feel like I'm just going to steal more stuff while I'm at work.
It's the Navy. It's like, wow, we can't let the boat go down.
Yeah, that's what it was, because I was indoctrinated.
It looks bad on your record, even though you've been retired how long now?
So we're coming back this week, and we're actually bringing the designer on. Joseph Frederick was the designer of We're Sinking, which we have had a blast playing. Joseph is the founder of Ludamus Games, and this is his first game that's been out.
Yeah, first game.
We were looking up the name. Tell us a little bit about where you got the idea for Ludamus.
Well, I was looking for a name for a company, and Ludo is kind of a common word for games in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up what it meant to say. I was trying to come up with a term, like a phrase that I could translate into Latin, which relative to Latin is kind of it's a lost language. So I got it as close as I could, but Ludamus basically translates to let's play games. Ludamus means let's play, and then it's Ludamus Games, so let's play games. Yeah,
I like it. I was looking at it, and the only real Latin that, like, I took it in high school, but I don't remember any of that anyway. But was it Spartacus, where the gladiators trained was the Ludus?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, nobody's wearing a loincloth. We're doing.
Yeah, I will say, so we are, of course, fans of really cool design when it comes to logos. And I absolutely love your guys. I mean, of course, ours is our little, like, Dapper Meeple guy. But when I saw yours, I was like, God, it's so clean. Like, I love it. So, yeah, kudos on both the name and the logo. Just fantastic. I know that can be some of the hardest parts of coming up with a business is trying to get those things nailed down.
Thank you. Yeah.
First game out in the world, We're Sinking. I saw on the Kickstarter page, you had like a little blurb about yourself. And one of the things on there was that this was not your first game that you designed, but this was the first one that made it that far. So what happened to all the other games? Did they just not get there yet?
Well, Toppings came before We're Sinking, which is the game I'm currently working on.
Right.
There's also there's a whole shelf of shame of designed or unfinished design games that I have in this closet right here, actually. And it's just I mean, I kind of have been designing since I've been a kid,
Mm-hmm.
but I never knew what to do with them. I never even considered until a few years ago that I could actually maybe have other people play these and actually make it into something. And then I think it was 2016, probably around 2016, when I kind of caught the bug of modern board games, of collecting modern board games, actually, like as a hobbyist and like having a shelf of,
Yeah.
you know, hundreds. And I also got the bug to design, and so I have tons of different games that just in various states. I did the um, kind of the standard kind of the noob mistake of like designing everything, printing it out. Um, like I have a 3D printer, so a lot of my things were also like 3D um,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
presentation, and without testing any of it
Oh,
first.
yeah.
And so I would put hundreds of hours into these uh, components and things, and I print it out, and I put it together, and then half the time I would just look at it and be like, what am I doing? This is stupid. No one's gonna ever want to play this. And the other time, the other half of the time, I would put it in front of my girlfriend or my brother or our group of friends, and they didn't know what to say. They didn't know like they didn't. They were all very nice, but I knew like this isn't really hitting the way, or I
Right.
don't even know like where to. I didn't know where to like get exposure or to show this thing to anyone to really say like, hey, this actually is maybe worth exploring.
Yeah, we
So,
hear that a lot from a lot of people that we talk to. We kind of tend to lean more into like an indie game type
yeah.
producer.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we hear over and over again is that, like, I didn't really know what to do with these ideas or who to show them to. Um, we've been really fortunate. We've had a couple people that we've talked to, and one of them, he's will be coming back eventually. But he does marketing, and he fell in love with board games and tabletop games and stuff. And it was a conversation that we've had with him. But a lot of them is just like, you go to the big conventions and find people to do the production side of it. Um, that's
Yeah.
the best we've been told, because we're like, we should design a game, and then ADHD kicks in, and it just never happens.
Yeah.
So that segues really great into what we kind of do as the geek bona fides. Like, how'd you get into this? What draws you in? What is the thing that you geek out about? And when you're sitting around the table, what really kind of gets you going for this whole hobby?
So I grew up like many of us with Magic and Warhammer,
Hmm.
um, Warhammer 40K, fantasy, um, all things I still have in my collection. I still have, but I just those are games like I kind of grew out of at some point.
Hmm.
But I went to college for video game art and design.
We
Um,
saw that.
yeah, I mostly focused on the uh, artistic side of that, the illustration and 3D modeling aspects. Um, Map design was something I was really into. And I graduated in that. Um, and in the same year that I graduated, I also decided that I did not want to move to the West Coast, um,
Mm.
which
Where's That's where a lot of video game design goes. Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, and it's such a competitive industry that I mean you have to be there if you want to be, anyone unless you're lucky enough to work for Bethesda, which is right down the road from me. So,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
yeah, they've never responded. So, in my resumes. Um,
Nice.
so and I was going to college for video games about the same time that like Minecraft just blew up, and I love Minecraft. It's um, primarily it's not even just about the game itself. I love the game. It's also just about the success story, the
Yeah.
Cinderella story of this developer who just made this thing that had no idea what it was going to be, and then it just took off, and now
Oh
he's a
yeah, it did.
billionaire. Um, and so I was like, oh well, I'll just do that. I'll learn how to code, and just start putting games. I had so many ideas, and I just thought that I could learn coding and it would just start to click together. But my brain is not wired that way. Uh,
Yeah.
After several years of trying to teach myself code, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it to click. I had friends in college who were programmers, and we would work on things, and you know, we'd spend 6 months working on something, and then it would just fall apart. We Communication kind of broke down.
Right.
Someone
Right.
gets a job, they're gone for, they're starting their lives up, including mine. So it just never worked. Around 2016 or 17, I got into X-Wing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I played X-wing. Yeah.
love
Yeah,
that
which
game.
was the
Yeah,
yeah. It is kind of a Star Wars tabletop combat sort of game, but it focuses in on the ships, like the space combat.
yeah.
For anybody that's out there listening to us that hasn't played, but I feel like
And in
you
terms
bunch
of
of
like a
nerds know.
yeah, in terms of like a miniature game, I mean, talk about like the production of having finished painted modeled ships
Yeah.
was still to this day like unheard of.
Right.
Um, and unfortunately, that game has kind of gone to the wayside, and partially because of that, because they couldn't keep up with uh, the the price of how much that game cost to produce.
Oh
But
yeah. And the ships were so like they were just yeah, they were so well done. Like I
yeah,
just loved collecting those.
yeah,
You could put them up on the shelf and they were just like I had the
uh,
Millennium Falcon sitting on my shelf forever.
yeah.
We got yeah,
I have a whole bunch on my shelf back here. Yeah, my Empire ships ties.
nice.
Um, anyways, I got really into that game. Um, me and my brother, we would play almost every Friday night, and we started inviting our friends over, and we would divvy up the teams and the points and squads, and we played that over and over and over again, week after week.
Right.
And I was always hosting this at my place, and we started to I started to realize that like some of us are not really like enjoying this as much as we had been. Maybe we don't have to play X-wing. Like, I have a few board games in my closet. I could maybe just, bust that out and we could play that. So we did, and we played. Somebody brought Catan. That was actually my first time I ever played Catan.
One of the
Um,
classics.
Yeah.
Dominion right after that,
Yep.
and then I started going on, BGG, and I started going, Dice Tower recommendations and things like that. And then of course that was like next thing I know, I have my closet's full of board games.
Next thing you know, I bought my second Calyx. I don't know what's going on next. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we've been there. We've
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
uh, yeah. And about the same time, I was like, I want to make board games because I don't need to be a programmer for that. I can just do what I enjoy, like be the artist, be the do the graphic design, do the game design, and I don't need to do code.
right.
I have a background in marketing and graphic design, so those were two big elements of running a company and running designing games. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And so far from what we've seen, and we had talked about it too, especially with We're Sinking. It's not a huge game by any stretch of the imagination. The layout is really nice, but it does have this very just kind of captivating table presence when you put it out there. When everybody sat down to play and stuff, like they were fascinated with the game. Like we said, we played it at 6 players, which is hard to make a game where you keep 6 players like
Engaged.
engaged. Yeah. A lot of time you got to throw stuff at them to get them off their phone and stuff. Um,
yeah,
didn't have that problem, so I can absolutely see where would mesh very well with being a board game designer. Um, I want this to happen. All right, well, I'm just going to write the card to say that. I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about binary. I'm fine. So yeah, um, you've done a lot of games. When did you decide that like, no, I'm going to make a company and we're gonna do this now? Like, because 2016 feels like a long time ago, but I'm also getting old.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh man, so much has changed. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fails. I mean, I probably spent 4 years of just failed prototypes and trying new things and ideas that just never went anywhere. yet. I will say yet. There's
Yeah.
definitely a few of them that I would love to continue to explore at some point. But
Right.
um, I went on Meetup, um, and was
Yeah.
just kind of looking for some groups for playtesting, and I found one called Break My Game in my area, College Park in Maryland, and I was like, you know what, I'll give that a shot. I'll drive out there, and I didn't have anything ready. I tried to get something ready for it, but I decided, you know what, I'm not going to stress it. I'm going to go and check it out. I'll go there and see how it runs. And to my just surprise, Elizabeth Hargrave was there playtesting her newest version of Wingspan and everything. I know, of course, I was like, just awestruck, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew she was a local, but I didn't expect to see her there, so um, that was awesome. And
Oh yeah. I can
then
imagine.
and it was an amazing time. I got to meet her. I got to play. I think it was the Oceania expansion that she was working on at that point, and I got to play a lot of other local designer games. And I left there and said, these are my people. Like, this is
Right.
this is amazing. Um, can't wait for the next one. And the next one was scheduled for, I believe, March of 2020.
Oh, I know
Which,
somebody that was trying to move during March of
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, that's me.
oh
I was
no,
that someone. Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah,
It was rough. Yeah.
I can imagine. Did it not? Well, I hope it all. You know,
Yeah. I mean, we got here. We took a little detour for a few months, but
yeah.
yeah, we made it. So,
Where were you moving
you know,
from?
from Charlotte, North Carolina, or actually from Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
We got waylaid in Charlotte for about 3 months,
Oh wow.
staying at where our mom's house was. Um, and then finally we were able to get a place up here and get jobs and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So did the pandemic help or hurt when it comes to game design?
that's a complicated. Uh, it's
Fair. No, that's
complicated.
fair.
That's Dapper Meeple
Um,
asking the hard questions.
Right? We don't softball stuff here. Just in case you're listening, you come on and think it's going to be easy.
um, it uh, it definitely led to um, a lot of situations that kind of evolved to where I am now. So
Right.
it it didn't. I mean, I don't know. It was
It got you
it got
here.
me here.
Yeah.
No, um, I was super bummed, of course, that it got canceled.
Right.
And I reached out on Facebook. I found the name of the organizer. I reached out and I said, hey, I'd love to find a way to, continue to be a part of this, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, like if there's any virtual way we could do this, and if there's any way that I can help with my, like graphic design skills, I can help you with branding and marketing, social
Right.
media, um, stuff like that. So he got right back to me and told me that they actually had just started up a Discord. Um, and so I joined that and started helping them out with, yeah, I updated their logo, some of their branding, their Facebook page, their website. Eventually, um, we ended up getting becoming a nonprofit.
Oh wow.
Um, the Discord since then has grown to close to 4,000, I believe, global designers, playtesters, uh, self-publishers, everything.
Wow.
Believe we are now the largest playtesting community on Discord,
Wow,
and
that's awesome.
we have volunteers who help us set up and arrange playtesting events every single day of the week.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
You've got the audience to do it. So I
Yeah.
mean, talk about coming out of COVID swinging.
Yeah. No, it was uh it definitely helped bring BMG to to life outside of our local, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah,
area. And so it was kind of just a happy accident that I was there to be a part of it. That's also how I met one of my best friends, Matt, who was running the Discord for Break My Game. Very similar, I think, story for him. He was looking for a local place and then wanted to help, and so he made the Discord and still runs it to this day. He's the chair, and I'm the vice chair on the board. So we're still rocking and rolling, and
nice.
it's I definitely would not be here with We're Sinking, with Ludamus Games, without Break My Game and the help of that community.
Yeah, yeah. We especially in this hobby, we talk about community a lot,
Mm.
and I feel like for everybody that we've talked to that's published games, that almost feels like a make or break, part of it. Nobody's doing this completely on their own.
No,
So yeah,
yeah,
that and I feel like Discord during pandemic, I feel like they jumped like 1,000% when it comes to user base since none of us could leave the house. So yeah. I mean, a good place to be, right place, right time. So I mean, let's talk about your design process that you go through. Like we said, uh, we've talked about we're sinking from what we think of it and like our point of view. So for you, like do you have a process or is it more of a throw it against the wall and see what sticks and then work from there? How does that work for you?
ah,
Also,
yeah.
kudos for making a good pirate game.
Yeah.
Just want to
Yeah.
get that out of the way. So
Thank
if I
you.
get one more pirate game where we have to play nice, I'm sinking everything.
um, yeah, that I feel like I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
always learning, and I'm still learning my design process. Right now, I feel like it changes.
sure, yeah,
Every game's a little different, for sure, and the way that I approach it. Um, I do tend to, because I guess come from the graphic design uh, world.
sure,
I do tend to kind of start with like component first or um, theme first
got it.
before I get to my mechanics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that can be a bit, tricky for me later
yeah,
on. Sometimes it
yeah.
really uh, trips me up, and
Right,
so I don't think that's necessarily the best way to do it. I don't necessarily know if it's the wrong way to do it, but it's a process. I enjoy it. I love coming up with an idea and just iterating and iterating. A lot of the things too don't always work virtually. It's just not gonna work in a virtual space, and so I will have to eventually physically make it
right.
and
Okay,
test it. Um, we're syncing when I first started that one was there was no ship. That was not one of my designs where I was like, "Ooh, I want to make a sinking ship," and then I built a game around that.
Hmm.
Uh, no, it actually was like a 52 card deck of cards, and that was that was kind of it. It was three
yeah,
columns. It was bucket, patch, or bucket, treasure, patch, and there were no cannons. There were no enemies. It was just kind of that core mechanic of the prisoner's dilemma. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really interesting that you talk about your design process, of course, being influenced by your background in graphic design. Because when we had Chris on the show, he talked about his approach to design was kind of from a problem solving aspect because he is an engineer, like by
yeah,
trade. So when he approaches game design, that's kind of what his thought process is what problem can we like fix or address or like create to give the players a solve kind of thing. So that's always really cool. I love to hear how different designers kind of approach it, because like obviously when you're designing something like this, you're going to bring in all of your background, all of your experiences, and all that thing, to really create your own process. So no, that's awesome. I'm surprised because I would have guessed the ship would have been the first thing,
Right.
given like your what you had talked about. But no, that's really cool. So yeah,
So when did the ship come in?
It was probably about a year in. For
Really?
a long time, I did have a set of cards that just kind of overlaid, um,
Okay.
and you kind of just like would shift it down a little layer by layer, kind of like how the cargo, or sorry, kind of how the threshold hold cards are in the final game, where you kind
Right.
of like
Yeah.
rotate them and then you only put like half of the card in, and you had those four different layers. It was kind of like that, but it kind of went top down, like it was sinking.
Right. Right.
And um, I don't even really remember. I think I had just thought that it would be cool to do a physical ship, but
Right. It's like, what would make this really cool if I could touch it?
yeah.
yeah,
Um, but for the longest time, I kind of fought against that because all of my um, pitfalls from all the previous projects that got shelved was that I always had to do something big, and it
Right.
always got to a point where it was like I was out of my comfort zone. I didn't know how, so I really wanted to do something simple with cards, something that I knew would
Right.
be much easier. um, but then of course I went ahead and I did a really rudimentary 3D mock-up. I needed to try it, and I took it to a local convention, and of course everybody said this has to be in the game. So I
Nice.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep, okay, damn it. All right, great.
Fine. You got me.
Yeah,
We're putting a boat in.
yeah.
Yeah. When we first saw it on Kickstarter, of course it was like, all right, another pirate game, and then we clicked on it, and that idea, that ship where you are physically sinking the ship if things are going bad.
hmm
I loved that, and that's what I think really kind of like, oh, now we need to take a closer look at this. Um, and yeah. So obviously we backed it, and we got our own ship. But yeah, good call. I feel like that was really a huge part of like the success of this is seeing that.
Thank
So
you.
so how
Yeah,
was this is your first Kickstarter too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How was your experience on Kickstarter?
Uh, Nerve-wracking. Uh,
I bet.
we didn't fund in the first day. We didn't fund on the fifth day. I think it was almost a week before we actually funded. And of course, so I was very, very nervous that we were going to get the momentum we needed to get,
Right.
past the goal and then hopefully, get a little bit more for all of our stretch
Right.
goals and all that. And but we did. As soon as we hit that, we I think we ended up close to 80,000, or yeah, a little over 80,000.
It's like I gotta check too.
It's been a while. But we were at least 200% our funding
Of what
goal.
you asked for.
Yeah, which was fantastic. And so that of course was uh, quite a bit of a journey. You
I
know,
bet.
um,
I,
but
I feel
yeah.
like if I was doing a Kickstarter, I just wouldn't look at it for like the first 10 days. Like
Oh, good luck.
I don't even want to know.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
That
obviously we don't have any Kickstarters planned anytime soon.
um, that's one thing that they tell you is that don't do that per se because
Oh, really?
oh yeah, you got to have that community engagement. Going back to community, people want to know that you're responding to them in the comments, that you are actively, you know, engaging and updating this thing and uh, things like that. They want to
Right.
know that you're in this day after day, and um, I've definitely seen campaigns sink. No pun intended there. Because
Free publicity, baby.
the creator just kind of disappeared until halfway through or the end, and the comments just kind of ate themselves up. Like they kind of ate
Oh yeah.
because they're just like, well, where is the person? There's no updates. There's, we asked these questions and nothing's been answered, and so people just decide to not back it,
Right. Lose interest and
lose
yeah.
interest, lose faith because
Hmm.
there doesn't seem to be anyone on the other side. And especially for a first time, like people can see on Kickstarter if you are a first time creator. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, I know for me personally, that's one thing I also will take into consideration when I'm backing something. Have they done this before? And so, for somebody coming in to it for the first time, I know I need to set that expectation that like, hey, I'm here, guys. Like I'm gonna,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Working on building your own community around here
yeah,
because again, apparently that's a big part of this.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
completely understand
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so we actually covered We're Sinking in our crowdfunding roundup that we did way back in episode 26,
Oh wow.
which was one that we put out on October 14th is when the episode hit. So we probably recorded it, I think, right before you guys funded, because I think you guys funded on like the 12th or something like that. So,
Mm.
but yeah, from the very start, we were 100% bought in after we saw the Kickstarter page, and I think it really like I loved when we get to talk to especially smaller designers and publishers. I love to hear your stories of that kind of nail biting, like little bit of time between like actually kicking off the Kickstarter and being funded. Um, that is this going to make it? Or is this going to be the project we actually get to run with? And honestly, I'm so happy that obviously this game got made because it's quickly becoming one of our favorites.
Oh
But I always love to hear the stories from that side of the game, right? Because I mean, we play a lot of games. We obviously talk about a lot of games, because we have a podcast. But we're not designers. We've never experienced that kind of pressure and just anticipation firsthand. So that's kind of why we like to bring guys like you on, just to hear that side of it, because for us it's one out of a myriad of other projects, right, that anyone could back on Kickstarter. But for you it's personal, right?
yeah,
It's this project you've worked for years in most cases on just to get it to that point, hoping that there's enough people out there that think it looks cool enough to give it a shot, you know. So yeah, absolutely, I for one love to hear like that side of the story. So let's talk about your next game coming out, because you have another one that's going to be coming to Kickstarter next year, right?
yeah. This one's been a long time coming. This was actually the first game that I, tried to work on under the Ludamus Games name, and I was about 4 months into it when I had the idea for War Sinking, and I said I got to stop everything because this is it consumed me for 2 years after that.
Yeah.
um, but I still really enjoyed what I was doing with Toppins, and so I had to come back. Um, and then War Sinking was delayed through Kickstarter. Uh, I had a child um, this uh, this past year, and so or this last year, and
Yeah.
so that's also delayed some things as well.
Yeah, you've got to like feed them like 2 and 3 times a day, and at that age they can't walk or go to the store by themselves. Yeah, been there.
Yeah,
Yeah, been there.
yeah, and I'm sure I don't know if you all noticed, but there is a promo sheet for Toppings in your We're Sinking box
Yep.
that says coming in 2024, and yeah, that changed about 2 months after I had all those printed. I was like, yeah, there's no way this is gonna this is gonna work. So that's a little bit embarrassing, but I'm not sweating it anymore.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just business. So it's
I feel like with this community too, and board game people, and especially board game people now who are backing Kickstarters, seeing something like that, they'd be like, "Oh no, yeah, that checks. That's fine." Like the second game, like you're all excited, you're ready for it to go. Okay, 4 more months, just 4 more months, right? I think we all understand that.
yeah,
But yeah. So what is toppings? Because I see the pictures, I see the box.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so Toppings is a game of picky pizza eaters. So you basically there's a premise for a pizza
right?
game. So the premise is you all ordered a pizza. It comes to the house. You open up the box, ready to eat, and you realize that the restaurant got all of the toppings wrong. So you
Nice.
all are going to be spending your time divvying up the slices, picking, swapping, nudging toppings from slice to slice, trying to concoct and build the slices with all of your favorite toppings and none of the ones you don't like.
Very nice. Is it cooperative, semi cooperative?
It is competitive. It's
Okay,
competitive.
is it?
Hmm.
Oh, so I'm gonna fight you for my pizza. I'm
Yes.
in. I'm in.
Yep.
Do it.
And everyone gets pizza cutters that actually function. Um,
That's fantastic.
Not to fight with, but they
Hey, hey, man. Couple drinks into this game.
oh
Maybe rules, but awesome. No, I love the sound of that. Like, yeah, and I love the theme, and that's the thing that I mean with We're Sinking, and it sounds like with toppings is, like I tell people all the time, like I'll play Ameritrash. I love a theme. Like you want to get me in your game, bring me into the game with a theme. Like we'll worry about mechanics later. So your approach checks with me. I'm like, yeah, no, that's how I think you should do it. I don't understand. So yeah,
yeah.
I like the sound of it. Like I like that theme. I'm also a big fan of pizza. You can't see it because I'm sitting down, but absolutely.
Yeah, I know you were demoing this at Gen Con, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, at the booth that you had. How was Gen Con for you? I know we didn't get a chance to swing by your booth because we weren't really honestly we didn't see that you were going to be there. And Gen Con was so wild for us that yeah, I don't know that we would have had time to make it anyway. But how was Gen Con with demoing the game and running the booth, all that sort of stuff?
It was wild. Um, yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be wild, but I had no true expectation. This was my first Gen Con and my first time exhibiting at Gen Con, so I was doing both. I yeah. Um, it was a very
Wow, that's a lot.
stressful
Yeah.
6 months
Hmm.
of preparation.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's a go big or go home situation for
oh
sure.
yeah. Plus, I
Uh,
was 1.5. I was 1.5 weeks away between when We're Sinking delivered and Gen Con. So I was like, please give me my game so I can actually sell them.
Show it. Yeah. Oh, we know. We know. We were. I think were we at? It was the day we were leaving for Gen Con, and it's sitting on my doorstep, and I'm like,
That was the other thing. Of course, you want to get it to the backers first, and
yeah,
that was
right.
what I was trying to do, and um, I didn't quite get everyone, but I explained the situation to most of the backers, and
yeah, yeah.
everybody, like everyone has been so supportive as on the from the backing from Kickstarter, the backers, the whole process, the whole
Yeah.
the delays that I've had, and um, the ship issues and things like that, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But it's been really a supportive and amazing group
I
community.
and I think a lot of us too. Like I said, with Kickstarter, we're kind of used to this, especially
Yeah,
since 2020,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
feels like there's a new world-changing event, every other month,
yeah,
and a lot of that affects where you guys are getting your pieces from, who's producing. things come out and you're like, that's not what I wanted it to look like, and back to the drawing board. And I feel like most people that I've talked to that do Kickstarter just kind of like understand it. Like,
Yeah.
I think the average right now is like, if I back something, I'll see it in a year.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But as long
I can
as
get that.
following that though, as long as the person is communicating it,
Yep.
Yes.
that's key, because if you're not communicating that and you disappear for months, of course people are going to be upset because you haven't explained where you went or
Right.
what's going on. So I think that's really really important.
Yeah.
But anyways, sorry.
Cool.
So going back to Gen Con.
So what are the ship issues? Don't First of all, be very clear to people that are listening.
Yeah.
Is the ship looks fantastic? Like,
Yeah, I was worried because I was like, "Oh man, did I come across like too harsh?" Because that was
Nah.
not my intention. Because I thought it was awesome. Uh, but yeah, so yeah, let's. I know you mentioned it when we were kind of talking beforehand. So, um, yeah, obviously
Yeah.
we said that our ship is a little wonky, but at the same time it is sinking. So I personally I love it. I didn't know if that was like a this is supposed to be this way or if it was just the way 3D printing works out sometimes.
Yeah. Going back to, this is why I didn't want this for my first project. It turns out plastic molding is hard, and it's,
hmm
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't know what I would have done differently or how I would have predicted this. The manufacturer is, well known. They have done amazing things. Produce amazing games. They provided the production copy that I approved. It looked perfect. It was great.
right.
Um, and then of course, before the games had even arrived in the States, um, folks in uh, Philippines and China were starting to get their games first,
Right.
and I started getting emails saying, hey, there's a gap in my ship. It's like this gap in between the different layers. So they sent me some pictures, and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. And
Yeah.
that's like 1% of my backers, and there's already multiple people telling me there's an issue, and I started freaking out. Like I was, oh, that was not a good week. Um,
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was heartbroken.
yeah. Sorry about bringing up painful memories. Uh,
Oh, it's all good.
I, I hope the rest of the review helped out, because the game in itself, like I said, table presence, just the mechanics, the way that you play, it is just such a good game. We've actually, like I said, we've played it with the six of us. We played it with a 3 count, and we've worked on some like younger players that we have.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's niece and nephew coming over, like, and they love it. Like, big pirate ship, like, okay, this is what you got to do, and they're like, yeah, shooting monsters, like, right down their alley.
Yeah.
So, I
Oh, that's
mean,
great.
the game in itself is great. I mean, that I get is minor, and we do like the sales. Don't get us wrong. It was like, where would I wish we just didn't have to take it apart. And it's like, oh, but then where would you put them? So yeah, no, like, oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I do love how good they look.
one other thing to that is that I don't know if you all know, but I have a template on Kickstarter and on BGG that allows you to make your own sales so that you can attach your own sales on there.
Obviously, no, we did not know that. We're gonna have Dapper Meeple sales, is what we're gonna have.
Yeah.
Put that in the show notes, so we find that. Yeah. Oh, see, that is fantastic, right? I like. It's fun to get a game. It's fun, the stuff we do, we love it. But we've got some custom stuff that we've had made, and it's always a little
Yeah.
bit like, this is my game room. Look at all of my Dapper Meeple stuff that I've incorporated into games. So, all right, well, we're gonna print those out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
So going back to the ship
yeah,
issue. So yeah, so it wasn't as bad as I was fearing it was once games started to arrive and people started opening them up. It's not great. There is a sizable gap in a good majority of the ships, but not all the games. Most of the games are in good condition. Um, I have been in talks with the manufacturer, and um, I've been updating Kickstarter as well to let
Hmm.
people know like what's going on. There is a form that folks can find on my website where you can fill out if you have a defect, if you have a wonky ship, you can post your pictures. I'm collecting shipping addresses that way as well because the manufacturer has um, they are committed to replacing them.
Oh wow,
The
very
the
good.
sections that are they're warped up for folks.
Yeah.
They're committed, and my number one thing was that's great, thank you, that's awesome, but I don't want to commit to making X many copies if we don't know what in the world happened in the first place. Let's reverse engineer some things and figure out what in the world happened.
Yeah.
So they've been doing a lot of testing and figuring out what happened
Yep.
because uh, it wasn't in quality control. They said that the ships looked great whenever they were bagging them and boxing them. Um, they have a feeling though that it was due to the heat,
Uh huh.
particularly in shipping containers when
Yep.
going overseas. Um, they showed some examples of it being under some sunlight for hours on end, and some of the pieces just starting to warp a little bit.
To start to warp a little. Hmm.
Um, so yeah, we've been trying to figure out how we can fix that. Trying different plastics, different ways to kind of just maybe band the ship pieces together during shipping.
Right.
Um, so we're still kind of exploring the best way to resolve it. Meanwhile, there have been the backers have been doing a lot of DIY fixes on it as well. They've been because it's typical, I guess, to sometimes get like a miniature that you have, and it's got like a wonky sword or floppy sword or whatever. Um, and there are fixes to that online that I
Yep.
had no idea. Like you can
Oh yeah.
heat up some water and dip them in and let
I was gonna say the boiling water trick. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done that a couple times with other miniatures. Yeah.
yeah
So
uh,
yeah, and
yeah
when we first saw it too, when we said something, as we're looking or playing the game, my first thought was like, yeah, I can fix that if we wanted. Like no big deal. Of course, like I said, we thought it was funny. Um, Keeping it out there. We'll definitely make sure that in the show notes we'll put a link onto your site so they can go look at it. If there is some backers that have something they're interested in filling that out, we're committed.
yeah.
You're not getting our ship back. Matter of fact, we're going to make our own sales, and I'm going to carve my own name into it for our ship. So yeah, we're not filling all those out.
That's awesome.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll link the update for the Kickstarter as well, that I know also has a link to the form. So that way, if any of our listeners are wanting to take advantage of that, then they'll be able to have access to that pretty easily.
Easy
So
stuff.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I please let me know if you have a
Hmm.
wonky ship, because I want your ship to be perfect as it's sinking.
I swear to God, if the next time you do advertising, please let me know if you have a wonky ship. Needs to be worked into a game design somewhere. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that might be one of the best quotes from a game that I've got yet. So I love it. So yeah, you do a lot of good themes, right? Like it seems like that is a big part of your design. And I know some of the stuff that you sent us in the pre-interview, and we sat around talking about it for a while, is talking about themes that are just not represented a lot in board games. We did a little Google search too, and we're like, because we have a library,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, I mean, there's so many themes out there. You can almost, if you come up with something, you could probably find a game.
Yeah.
Maybe not always a well done game. Some people just kind of slap a theme on stuff because it's not how you should do the design process. I got you. So yeah, um, we actually found a list from like 2011 or something.
Oh, that's
Like,
fun.
yeah, like deep Reddit, right?
Yeah.
Like places you're not supposed to go without protection and
Adult
stuff.
supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and we were looking down the list. It's like, well, this I wanted to see this. I'd love to see this. And like over the last
Check, 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 check.
15,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah. So what are some of the ideas that you don't see out there that you would like?
Little libraries. So you said you had to search for this. So have you heard of a free little library before?
The ones that they're usually like a little box out on like a street or something, and you come in, you take a book, leave a
Yeah.
book, kind of thing.
Yeah, mostly in
Yeah.
like neighborhoods, like in
Mm-hmm.
front of
Yeah.
someone's
Yeah.
house. Um, I I mean, I can probably remember that like I started seeing those pop up maybe 5 years ago, and I thought
Yeah.
it was like absurd and weird, and um, that people are just going to steal your books, or like why would you do that, or they're going to put junk books in there. Um, but it's stuck in my brain this, and every time I see one, I'm fascinated with because a lot of them are just custom built. They make them themselves, they paint them,
Right.
and then there's so much love put into those, and then to see the community kind of grow around that, you know, like your neighbors, you know, contribute to it, and it's kind of this like weird ecosystem. And I would love to do one for my house, and I haven't yet, but
Right.
because I of course I want to like make it. Yeah, I'm actually kind of working on a little library game right now, like a little
Nice.
cozy co-op library game about making your
Yeah.
own little library. So, because
And
I haven't seen anyone do one of those.
I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't even know the term. They wouldn't
It's
understand
possible. Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think it would definitely have to be. You'd have to be a co-op game. You'd have to be a co-op game. Like you said when you first saw them, and that's kind of what I was like too. I was like, man, if you put good books in there, people are just gonna take all your books. But they don't. Like
Yeah.
the ones that I've seen have been successful. The community gets together and shares books.
Yeah.
Which yeah, so the game I feel like it would have to go that route.
Yep. I,
Like we had talked about it for a little while too, and there's so many themes that have already been done.
mhm.
Um, like there's just again with the explosion in board gaming in the last 20 years, there's somebody thinking about it, and usually more than one.
Yeah.
We know like the BA Games guys, they released Forges of Ravenshire, and there was another forging game that came out at the same time that just did not get the momentum.
Mm.
And that dude's like, I hate that little badger. So yeah, yeah, a couple that we were talking about. Like I would like to see more pop culture referenced games that are not party games. I feel like there's a lot of those where it's a party game, but in my head, I'm thinking more like Ready Player One,
Mm.
right? Like something kind of based off of that, where you're playing a game, but the theme of the game isn't just what you're playing. The theme is also all the stuff that you love wrapped up in it, right?
Yeah.
Just like how the book and the movie was. That would be the one that I would like to see somebody make and do it good because I want to back it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we were talking about like a different take on like dungeon crawls, because most of them are like find the monster, defeat the monster, or gather the treasure, something like that. I was thinking of that anime that came out recently, the Delicious in Dungeon, where they're
Yes.
like cooking the monsters and stuff like that. Um, just a different take on that kind of dungeon crawl experience. I think would be pretty cool. What if you're actually the cleaning crew for the dungeon
Yeah.
that comes in after the adventurers get wiped? Something like that that is just unique and different. I feel like with the like you said, with the amount of games coming out, it's kind of tough to find a unique design space sometimes. It feels like I mean, we talk about, like you mentioned, Elizabeth Hargrave, and with Wingspan, like birds were not really a well known like design space. Then Wingspan comes out, and the next thing you know, there are tons of different games featuring or having to do with birds and
Birds.
that kind of
Yep.
thing. So I think it's always interesting the way that board game design kind of shifts. And we've talked about it with some of the other people we've had on, how, you know, sometimes a theme for a game will be one thing when you start designing the game, and by the time you get to the end of the design process, that theme is completely different.
Yeah.
Whatever that ends up being, it is something that doesn't look theme wise whatever the original game was. The mechanics are all there. That all is the same box, but your theme is something, you know, completely different.
Yeah, that happens all the time. And sometimes you just look at you step away and you come back and you're like, why am I using this theme? Like it actually works better as
Yeah.
a brewing witches,
Right.
game or something like that. Then it is fascinating. And I will also add, you mentioned that like you never know who is working on, you know, a little library game, for example, and
Right.
because it's not just one person out there. Um,
Yeah.
and you're right, and that can be a little disheartening too. Like you're this, an indie person, or you're just, getting into game design. You have this idea, and you're just like, yeah, but by the time I like get around to making it, like someone will already have made the janitor cleaning the dungeon game. I'm sure the op is probably already halfway there. That
Or Devere,
yeah.
probably. It's yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's disheartening. I remember too when I was doing We're Sinking early on. I was like, do we really need another pirate game? Like, am I gonna be that guy who's everyone's just like, do we need another pirate game? Like, is it gonna be the one that just breaks the camel's back and everyone's just like, no more pirate games? Like, which is just
Like,
ridiculous. But I was just
oh yeah, yeah. Kind of like the MCU. Like, are
yeah.
we done with superheroes yet? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we think like I said, we think it was a great job. Um, we've got a theme picked out if we ever do decide to put something together.
Oh,
So we might need some pizza collaboration in dungeons. So
pizzas or
just throwing it out
pirates?
there.
Pizzas or pirates? You got me.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Um, so yeah, dude, I mean, let me just open the floor. Is there anything else that we missed? Is there anything that you definitely want to tell people about you or Ludamus Games, or um, like hope the kid's doing great? They can usually walk at about what, 2 now? I don't remember. Mine are like 20 and 17. I'm just trying to get them to survive one more year every year. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean that's the mission all the way through,
Yeah.
right? She's doing great. She's 17 months, um, sleeping right now, right above me, so that's why I'm kind of low volume at
Yeah.
the
No
moment.
worries.
But yeah, no, she's doing great. Every day
Awesome.
is amazing because there's something new that she's picking up on or and learning, and of course I'm
Yep.
learning at the same time.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Also, they don't come with manuals. Not like games. It's crazy.
right.
I don't know who wrote this process, but it's horrible.
Yeah,
Really horrible. Bad design all the way around. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I remember it. But yeah, that's awesome news.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She's getting to the age
So,
right now where she's getting the dexterity power to be able to put like Duplo Legos together. So I'm
yeah.
like, oh, okay, yes, I get to. All right, this kid's gonna be spoiled with Legos. So,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. Joseph, just wanted to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming and talking to us about this game and what you're doing. The next steps we're definitely looking forward to. We'll get out some information, like I said, in the show notes and on our website and Facebook and stuff. Do you have social media that you prefer for people to go to? Website? Do you want to let
yeah,
them know?
yeah. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Ludamus Games.
Got it. Got it.
Yep, and
Cool.
ludamusgames.com. I do have We're Sinking on there, and the expansion, which has spooky ghosts as a enemy, which is very thematic for Halloween coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got that one too. Uh,
Good.
we did good.
Yeah, thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, man. We are looking forward to seeing, like I said, what comes next. we'll bounce into another segment, so we'll keep you around for just a couple more minutes.
Cool.
I feel like the best part of making any game is getting able to put a little bit of yourself into it. And I have reused some of my favorite characters over and over again as my NPCs. So when we have a guest on, I like to ask them if they have a favorite or a memorable or one that they want to talk to us about. Joseph Frederick from Ludamus Games, you have heard us talking for the rest of this episode, and we invited him into this little segment of Know Your Character. So Joseph, I guess let's start with tell us about the character.
So I'm not that much of a role player, but I do have two uh, stepbrothers who are huge into it. We do get to play every once in a while whenever they visit or we go and visit them. There was a campaign that they recently played. My wife was up there visiting with them. Pretty much the whole family was visiting, and I actually was stuck at home, uh, so I couldn't participate in this game that they were working on. And I thought, well, couldn't I like make you like an NPC character and maybe the DM, my sister-in-law you know could do the NPC, and they said yeah, absolutely. So I kind of jumped at it because I there's there's one thing that I love about
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
role playing is creating the characters. I'm horrible at actually like role playing those characters, but I love like writing the backstories and coming up with that. So this is the character that I came up with.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know so many other people that have like books of characters that they've designed or they've developed, but they've never played them. So yeah, man, you're in good company. Yeah, 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 yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so tell us about it.
Old Pete is the ship's chief engineer. He claims he hasn't set foot on land in 20 years and never misses an opportunity to remind the crew. He's 35, but due to the long stints with Salt and Sun, he looks more like 75. He is a skinny fellow with thinning gray wiry hair and a long grease-riddled beard. His skin is blotchy and pale. He also has a lisp due to his lack of front teeth. His clothes are an assortment of sewn together, musty smelling rags. Despite his unhealthy appearance, Pete is lively and jovial, always happy to spin a dire situation into an optimistic tale that he swears truly happened.
That's fantastic. I love the personality. Everything's going wrong, and he's more of a yeah, but we've done this before, and this is how it worked out. It's kind of how I picture him like addressing the problem. So I love it. Um,
It wasn't until I read this actually that it made me realize that this sounds like a character from We're Sinking. Uh,
I was wondering, but like I was like, all right, like let's.
hey man, I was totally gonna respect your, like no, we're doing pirates. It's pirates all year.
well, I forgot to mention the context also of like what the story was,
Yeah.
which was, and I think it was like a steampunk world that they had kind of set up for us, and it was supposed to be kind of like an eerie um, horror adventure.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't play it, so I actually don't know
Right.
what all
Sure.
happened. But well, other than I did ask them about how the game went, and they told me that old Pete died immediately, which I
Ouch.
was not very happy about.
Womp womp.
But to be fair, I did put in the whole the whole thing about him having a lisp in there as kind of a dig at. I just really wanted my sister-in-law to have to do a lisp every time she did the character, and yeah, so that that clearly didn't happen.
Yeah, you're saying that like, oh, I'm not much of a role player, dude. Everything you're doing right now is everything our party does to us when we run a D&D game. Like, let me design a character so when you have to do the voice, it hurts, Or
Yep.
let me see what chaos I can wreak in this game right now. Man, I think you're in there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
gold,
yeah.
man. You're gold. Do you know what setting they were playing? Because I can already see this guy in like so many settings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a I think like a 1920s steampunk style,
Yeah.
like floating ship, like
Just that
that's
whole
about
kind
all
of
I know.
aesthetic. Yeah,
Yeah.
like technology made a jump somewhere, but it hasn't all quite caught up. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see it in Eberron.
That was my first thought, talking like steampunk. But I mean, I think this kind of general design, that guy who is permanently like a staple on the ship. I mean, I think that fits in almost every setting that has some sort of vessel on it.
Yeah,
Right. Whether it's an airship or an actual water ship, um, like he just kind of fits there, right? I and the party. So I think it's really cool that the party encounters him, um, and at first he starts out as like just this fixture, right? He's part of the background of the ship, right? They
Mm.
show up and there's old Pete, right? He's always there on the ship. They've taken the ship to cross, the river or whatever 40 times, and old Pete's always been there. And the next thing you know, after a few different circumstances or whatever, next thing old Pete has some quests for him,
yeah,
right? And then next thing you know, instead of just hopping on the ship as a vessel, right, they're actually on the ship now because they become part of the crew, right? Old Pete respects them now. And throughout, wherever that quest leads them, through whatever danger, and even in like the most unusual of circumstances, old Pete has some story or quip of how, he went through something that was similar, but 10 times more dangerous.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though most people would say he's probably never left that section of the river that he would ferry people across, he knows and tells all the stories. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's very old sailor vibe too. You've worked around the Navy. You know how we are. Uh, we call them sea stories. Most people call them lies. But yeah, no, I like that. When you're designing it, when you were designing this as the NPC, did you kind of have an idea of how you saw them fitting in? Maybe not necessarily as a class, or what he would have been good at, right?
Yeah. I definitely didn't like align him to any kind of class
Yeah,
or anything like that. I kind of saw him as being kind of like just the trying to put some um, joy into this very like drab
yeah, yeah, yeah.
quest that the crew is going to be going on, and it kind of be like that, um, the comedy, if you
The
will.
comedic relief.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was searching for.
Yeah,
Um, and apparently the DM didn't appreciate that very much.
hey, whatever. We're gonna make sure Pete lives on.
I think if we had to put a class on him,
Bard.
oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
College of
yeah,
Eloquence.
I was yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
100%. Because that's, I mean, to me, that aspect of storytelling, right,
mm,
is such, I think, a crucial part to this character, right? And I think it gives the DM like a cool opportunity to inject lore as well into the world, right? Because
yep,
the stories that the players have heard may be one thing, but let old Pete tell you about how it really is,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And 95% of that story may be complete bullshit, but there's going to be that 5% nugget of what's actually happening in the world. I think that's a great tool as a DM to be able to inject like those pieces of hints and clues and lore into your world that makes it something that's like a living, breathing thing, right? Because we talk
Yeah.
about all the time when you're around a table, the memories and the experiences you create are what keep bringing us back to that. But you have to create a story in a world that's engaging.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the easiest ways to do that is make it like a living, breathing thing. And I think a character like Old Pete is something that 100% just does that.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's if we had to put a class, I think that's the direction I would take him.
Yeah, I could see that. I also
agree.
think, I also think a Oath of Treachery Paladin could fit.
Yeah, definitely. So if Pete is not as jovial as he seems on the surface, if it's just a ruse, then yeah, 100%. If it's one of his personas,
Yep.
yeah. So, Joseph, I don't know how familiar you are with D&D. So before we run off on all kinds of tangents,
Yeah, I was gonna say we're nerding out. So give us a second. We'll be back.
So the Oath of Treachery Paladins, oftentimes have like different personas that they adapt, right?
Okay.
So they're very good at like infiltrating areas, or in some cases, some of the ways, like the way that you've played him in the past, has been his character had a different name for everyone that he met. Right. So all these different people would call him different names, and he would adopt those different personas as kind of like a way to keep himself, almost like an enigma.
Yeah. So, like I was
Amazing.
saying, things to do to annoy your DM. What's your character's name? Well, I've got 2 pages. So,
Yeah.
but I could definitely see Pete falling into something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is his, this is his persona to be in a place where one, he can gather information, right? Because how many people are going to come on this boat,
Right?
How many different people, and who is going to care about what the old man on the boat hears?
Exactly.
Or
what the old man can sneak on and smuggle across.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really, really interesting ways to take this character for sure. I now it makes me like want to do like a pirate campaign somewhere. It's pirate year.
Here we go. We're just gonna hold on. 2024, gonna roll out with the black flag, baby.
Yeah, you have a sinkable ship you can use.
I was gonna say,
so there you go.
With our party, it's going down. It's
100%.
That's what they're doing. So
yeah.
So that's kind of. I mean, first of all, I feel like we've given Pete some layers, like an onion. So we'll chalk that up on our resume.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I love it. I have a feeling that if we do another family D&D, OP might get resurrected now. We'll see.
I feel like he has to at this point.
I feel like I support that fully. That should be, if that's what you guys do, that should be your character. And they're going to be like, oh, old Pete, that was that guy who got killed. And you're going to be like, let me tell you about who old Pete is. But yeah.
Awesome. So there you go, guys. One more fantastic character to put in your background, and your Rolodex of NPCs that you can use, which I feel like we've just scratched the surface of old Pete, which feels like it's going to involve like psoriasis or something. But you've got some options. Take him anywhere you need that, crotchety old man on the ship, and maybe keep a little gold hidden in the back. Joseph, thank you so much again for coming on and doing this segment with us. Like we said, this is kind of, I know it's my favorite, and I love it, man. Good to go.
This was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And with that, the foul pit goblin strikes swiftly, its jagged blade tearing through Gimli's armor, causing 4 wounds, but strength negates.
Gimli only flips over 2 successes, negating half the damage, but pushing him over his damage threshold.
Now is time for his last stand to see if the heroes can finish their quest. It's a wisdom test, needing 2 successes.
The first card's a success. He only needs 1 more to recover. But his final card is a weakness.
Gimli succumbs to his wounds, and the darkness grows stronger. For the Dapper Meeple, I'm Jim.
And I'm Josh. Good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for sticking around and listening to our show.
If you enjoyed it, let me ask you a favor. Follow us and leave a like wherever you get your podcasts. It'll really help us out.
And if you have anything to say back to us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Dapper Meeple. Or you can email us at dappermeeplegaming@gmail.com.
And as always, we'll save you a seat at the table.